Skydiving is on my bucket list. And I have the bravado, the machismo, and once the youthful stupidity to actually make it so. Madam Chair, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. I have jumped out of a plane and lived to tell you all about it here today. So live vicariously through me for the next few minutes. This tale began on a dark and stormy Strait to Killia night, several years ago. My coworker Jim and I were enjoying a beverage, and he asked me a question that shook my life. He asked, "Greg, do you want to go skydiving tomorrow?" And I replied, "Jim, what could possibly motivate me to put on a flimsy plastic parachute and jump from a plane?" He replied, "Well, Greg, chicks dig it." That rationale brought me to Vanderhoof the very next morning in a drafty hangar for skydiving school, where we learned 1,001 ways to die and maybe a handful of ways in which to avoid that fate. Many of which, interestingly, involve the same thing: prayer. After getting all learned up about parachuting, it was time to meet our aeroplane. And it was majestic. Not because it was sleek or state-of-the-art, but rather for the sheer amount of duct tape on, in, and around this piece, seemingly keeping it together. And it was a small aircraft. So small, in fact, that all the seats were removed to build capacity, so they could fit more people into it. Even the pilot, for example, was sitting on a few dilapidated, stinky phone books instead of a seat. And we climbed into this thing. 3 jumpers, a jump master, and the pilot. And it was tight. Think Twister, except with crash helmets and jumpsuits and parachute-infested bulky backpacks. However, we got somewhat settled. That wasn't until the pilot mentioned to us, yelled at us over the hum of the plane engines as we're just going onto the runway, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to need everyone to lean forward during takeoff." I don't know about you, but any aircraft that requires its occupants to move in a certain way for its safe operation doesn't exactly inspire much confidence in me. However, we did get off the ground. We were at jump height. It was my turn to exit the plane. I remember holding on to the strut of the plane for dear life. And then the jump master gave me one of these. I smiled back at him. He gave me one of these then. I returned with a smile. Then he got frustrated with me. He took a broom out and rapped my knuckles until I let go. And I fell. And I fell and I fell. I wasn't supposed to. I was supposed to fall, but not free fall. You see, normally, for newbie jumpers, the jump master holds onto your guide chute as you leave the plane, and that opens up your main parachute. They don't trust newbie jumpers to do that themselves, to pull the ripcord and engage the chute themselves. I was an exhibit A of why they don't trust such a person to do this. However, all of a sudden, I saw a black missile coming towards me, air rushing out of my lungs, and then an explosion of color. The jump master dove after me, tackled me, pulled my chute, and then disengaged so he could release his own parachute. I would not die that day. However, I had fallen too far. I was coming into the ground hot, very fast. Injury was very unlikely. Then a murder of crows, likely feasting on a parachuter from the day before, flew up into my parachute, giving me extra buoyancy. I might be okay. I hit the ground, and I remembered something from the school. If you roll, you dissipate energy. So I rolled. Now apparently, according to eyewitnesses, I am an Olympic class somersaulter. Who would have known? That excellent exhibition of somersaulting allowed me to not only survive without injuries or too many bruises, but it also corrected a kink in my neck. And my nose, that was once broken and crooked, was suddenly straightened. I walked away from that landing and was more handsome and more awesome than ever before. Ladies and gentlemen, I indeed have skydived, crossed it off my bucket list, but I do not recommend it for anybody else. Because from my experience, when you skydive, what goes up must come down, and guess what? That's an uphill battle both ways. Madam Chair.